Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about managers and reviews. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, Frederick, do you feel happy if your manager is excited to look at your code and requests you to walk through it? Well, it depends on what type of manager I'm dealing with. I've had managers where I've just felt very bothered by it because they've been really shitty leaders and had a fairly short fuse and was sort of notorious for being intimidating because it's one of those classic people where they're a software developer who transitioned into management, but they don't have any people skills basically, and they cause just a lot of tension and friction for the most part between people. That's not fun because you're just sitting there sort of trying to show your work and you're just waiting for them to be pissed off at something that they don't like because they have a lot of strong opinions about everything. But apart from that, in other cases I've had managers who have been trying to do something I think is fairly noble, or it's a good thing in a sense, where they've sort of acknowledged that they don't know enough about the project. They had a technical background, so they wanted me to kind of walk through how the system works and so how like the architecture is set up and sort of where we are, where the where the issues are, and which direction we're trying to take with the overall code base. So they sort of inform themselves of the state of more than the backlog. They actually want to know what the state of the code is, which I thought was it's pretty nice when they do that. It's not always that we can have like a full-fledged conversation at the same level that I might have had with the other software developers, because usually the engineering managers don't have the same strong technical background as the engineers. But I think that it's nice, and it sort of touches on something that I've said before, that I believe it's fairly important for managers to understand the well they need to even to a greater extent, I would say, than they are today, understand the technologies that the teams are dealing with and sort of the profiles and like what part of the whole chain of delivery that each person is involved in and what the steps are and so forth. Not necessarily because I think that they're going to be able to provide a lot of valuable feedback in this area, but because it becomes when an engineer tries to explain why something takes a bit longer or tries to genuinely improve something and there are issues and so forth, it becomes a little bit more real to people and more I don't know a better way of putting it. It becomes more believable when the person has that you like the manager has an understanding of reality, if that makes sense. Something that I truly disguise is that's truly disgusting to me is that a lot of people in the world have this. We have a gigantic problem, and that is that you can basically get anyone to believe anything because people don't take the time to actually say, I don't actually know the first thing about this thing, and this person who's telling me this and this person that's telling me that, both of them could be lying, one of them could be lying, I don't actually know, but I will still act as if I know something about it. And when you're trying to convince someone it's actually very difficult, because if the only thing that you have to do in order to convince someone is to make them trust you, then, well, that's basically politics 101 for you, because what you basically are trying to do is to make people feel things, that they trust you, feel things like towards you, so that they will like give you approval or like tell you that that's fine. It's the same thing with managers. If the manager trusts you, in other words, if they like you, then you might be able to do things. But if they don't like you, or maybe whatever you are telling them, it might be the truth. Have you ever had a refactor that was desperately needed, but nobody wanted to hear you out for it? It's the same problem. If the manager doesn't understand the issues that we are trying to solve, and it is counter to whatever ideas that they have, then they won't listen to you. They won't hear you at all. And that, I think, it's pretty bad, because as an engineer, as a manager, you should be able to tell when a cost is necessary and when it might not be so necessary. And my argument is that the average engineering manager doesn't know how to do that. Some do to an extent. Like I mean, you can always go deeper and deeper and deeper, but it's very important to have, I think, a basic understanding of the system and the people that you are going to be the head of. I argue, because as I said, when they come to you, it's important that you can at least have a fruitful conversation about things, which becomes very difficult when all you really have to go on is, hey, yeah, that sounds great, this sounds good, etc., etc. And in some cases it's good for you as well, because some software developers are not going to come with suggestions that are very thought out and very appropriate. They might come with, the classic one I use is, oh yeah, we're going to rewrite all the code into a functional style instead. And as an engineering manager, if you hear something like that, that should give you pause for questioning and like really ask, like, why are you doing this thing here? Because 99% of the time that's not really a value building update to the code base. But how would you know that unless you are sort of informed of how the work is being done? Which brings us back to what I was saying. If you don't know anything about the code or anything like that, it's pretty good if you have at least a basic understanding of how this thing is working and sort of how best practices, according to like the mainstream stuff, how it's supposed to be done. You don't have to be an expert, but it doesn't hurt, to, if you have an engineering background, to take a few Udemy courses and learning at least the basics, so that you don't feel completely lost when the developers are having a conversation. So what I want you to take away from this is that I wouldn't say that I'm excited that my manager takes an interest in the code. If it's the wrong manager, I actually dread it a little bit, because I don't really like having conversations with people that I find, just hostile for no apparent reasons. People with social problems that treat other people poorly are not some people that I enjoy spending time with. But on the other hand, if it's a manager who is trying to educate themselves and trying to learn more, then I'm very happy to have that conversation, because I think it's very useful for them to have at least a basic understanding of what tools are we using, sort of where is the repository, like how is the code structured, and sort of how do we do our testing, what type of testings are we doing, how do we deploy things, like these very, very basic things is really great for them to have a sort of understanding of it. It makes it so much easier to have a conversation. Have a great day.